It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do do do.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Spirit Cafe Show. I'm Barbara Jean,
And I'm Cheryl.
and we are so excited that you're here with us today. We have a great show planned for you. And you know, we're having courageous conversations. Wherever they go is just for the fun of it. So let us begin with the land acknowledgement. We are honored to be meeting on this land that many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island call home. We acknowledge and thank the original caretakers and knowledge keepers of this territory. The Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. And we also give thanks to all other Indigenous peoples, recorded and unrecorded, who have shared responsibility for this territory. We also acknowledge, as inhabitants of these lands, that inequity and discrimination continue to affect our BIPOC and our 2S LGBTQ plus family. So we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. Recognizing our ultimate oneness and acknowledging our reality, past and present, we commit to moving forward in a spirit of mutual cooperation. We are one. Miigwech.
Miigwech. Yes, and boy, do we have a wonderful guest for you today, Marilyn Smith. And you're going to meet her right now. She's coming in. And I'll let you know a little bit about Marilyn. She first came into the New Thought movement when she came into Unity Kitchener in late 2003. And she says that's when she found her spiritual home. In her words, there was talk of metaphysics, positive thinking, and the minister was wearing a sparkly outfit. Exclamation marks. I was with my people. So that was it. She was sold because Marilyn is also, her nickname is Sparkles. So she became a Unity Kitchener member in 2004 and has served on the board of directors there. She has been and still does do Sunday talks. She's taught many classes in prosperity and positive manifestation. And Marilyn is semi-retired, consulting and speaking in the optical profession. She does life coaching and she enjoys winters in Florida. And I must tell you, semi-retired, but one of the people that has the fullest life I have ever known. So we welcome Marilyn.
Welcome, Marilyn. So glad you're here.
Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. Much appreciated, and I'm very honored to be here. It's a wonderful place to be, and I know you love courageous conversations, so I'm excited.
Yeah, we do. And so one of the things, one of the reasons that when we were talking about speakers, and I said, what about Marilyn, is because I really, and I've shared this with you, believe that you are a master manifester. And I wanted to share some of your stories, some of your life experiences, because as much as we are all in New Thought and we know the principles and, the values and spiritual law, the truth that we know, often our conditioning from our previous experiences get in the way and block us. And so that's why, some people will say, well, I've been doing this and nothing happens, or, when is this ever going to show up? Like, does this really work? So I wanted to people to hear about your story and maybe start off with the little house that you manifested with a picket fence.
Well, thank you so much. I always want to say, oh, no, 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 don't call me a manifester, but I can't say no, because there's things that I can actually say that have occurred that are true. And they just are. They're just a truth in the
Mhm.
situation. But a little bit about me, just so you know where I come from. I was the child of teenage parents. They did a lovely job, and the older I get, the more I, yeah, wonderfully look at their parenting, and they did such a good job for the age they were, and the surprise that I was. And I have a younger sister, a couple years younger, and my parents were married for 56 years. My dad passed away in 2015. Just last week was the anniversary of his death, actually. And they made things work, and
Mhm.
they did a good job. But there was things amongst our childhoods, as we all know, that get a bit ingrained. And one of the prosperity things was um, always getting by, not quite
Mm.
enough. We never lacked for anything. I didn't consider us poor by any means, but, there was always something you wanted, that nice new pair of jeans, or something else that you thought somebody else down the street had, or, whatever that was, right? We always seemed to be a little bit just always sort of getting by. Anyway, that's
Mhm.
that's sort of where my mindset always was, which I didn't recognize for a long, long time, because lots of people have that mindset. That's not unusual, right? So
Mhm.
It's true.
not an oddity, right?
Mhm.
Except that we're given all kinds of things to keep that mindset. you know, don't go too far. Don't get too successful. Don't have too much. Um,
Mhm.
and as a person who really likes fun and laughter, as both of you know from me, I've often been told to get small, or
Mhm.
like just tone it down a little bit. And it's only in my later part of this half of the life, when you get to that midlife part, where you start saying, well, no, I'm not gonna put that away, actually, because I think it's really fun.
Mhm.
And it's okay if you don't like it. Maybe I'll just need
Mhm.
to be somewhere else, and that's cool. But part of my journey, and this is the story that Cheryl was mentioning about my little houses, um, was in my, let me just think, late 30s. I had been divorced. I was raising a daughter by myself. I had that other kind of divorce that people have. And I know some of you on the screen have gone through this, where you're the one paying off all the bills, and you're the one that sort of got left high and dry to sort of take care of it all. And that was my life. So I was again living in this somewhat poverty mindset, even though I had a professional job. I was doing okay. But again, following that footstep of family stuff, I was getting by. And
Mhm.
it was all right, but I worried about money all the time. I would say it was my constant concern. Even though we had a home, and my daughter was fine and everything was groovy, I
Mhm.
never felt that comfort of, like, go to bed and not worry about money all the time.
Right.
Mhm.
So in my late 30s, so my daughter would have been about 12, I entered into a multi-level marketing company, and it was about healthcare stuff, and it kind of interests me, kind of a fun group of people. And those things unfortunately don't always last all that well. But in the meantime, that multi-level marketing company happened to have Bob Proctor as their guy. He was their sort of training guy, and he would actually take people aside for a weekend worth of training, whatever. I hadn't met Bob before. I think I'd seen a book of his, maybe somewhere, prosperity kind of thinking, that kind of I
Mhm.
who he was. He's a Toronto guy too, which is kind of interesting because he's Canadian. Anyway, I met him and his wife. He came and did a few things, and it was like, oh man, I really like this. I like this
Mhm.
a lot. I like this whole mindset thing. This really speaks to me. And I think I already had it in me somewhere. I just needed to sort of unleash it a little bit. Anyway,
Right.
a number of months later, Bob was looking for facilitators for a program he ran called The Science of Getting Rich. So this was the first time he had ever put it out to have facilitators. So that he wasn't the only facilitator in the world. So he actually was going to hire people. And by hiring, I mean, we paid to do his program. So don't get me wrong, I wasn't paid immediately. But anyway, so I applied and I went through a little process, everything. They accepted me. And I was all excited. And I hadn't joined Unity or anything yet. So I hadn't heard of that stuff yet. And I had to have $10,000 as an investment. Now I could have $10 or I could have $1,000,000. I didn't have anything really in the big scheme of things. I was like, where am I going to get $10,000? But I was driven to do this. I was just driven for it. And I was
Mhm.
excited about it. It didn't get in my way. I just really wanted to do this. And I had still had bills to pay and stuff, and I worried about them. But this was sort of like, I'm going. Anyway, it happened that I was quite close to my grandparents, and they had some decent amount of money, and I just said, I'd like to do this. I'm happy to pay you back, but could I borrow this for a year and do this program? And part of it would be, of course, then to teach and have money come back in, right? So you do some
Mhm.
programs, some coaching, and be able to do this program. So my grandparents very kindly said yes, that would be fine. So we made an agreement and we wrote it all down and we signed it, and that was great. And I did pay them back over a year. It was all very good. So I go to Phoenix. And I was very uncomfortable. I felt very out of place because, I'm in this poverty mindset and all these people look like they're just doing great, right? And
Mhm.
you find out afterwards a whole bunch of people are in that mindset too. They're just all just treading water as much as they can as well. So, funny things happen again. So I went and I was supposed to share a room. I didn't know anybody else there. A lot of people didn't. Some people came as couples or friends, but a lot of people were coming on their own. So they had put us with roommate people to lower the cost of hotel rooms. And the person I was supposed to share with didn't arrive. They just didn't come to the program. Whatever happened, I don't know. So I was in a room by myself. And I say that because day one goes by, and I won't talk a whole lot about Bob, but I'm telling you, he's passed away now. He passed away a couple years ago, which was sad, but he had lived a long, full life at that point.
Mhm.
He's a master speaker, just a master speaker. He has a huge story to tell as well. So once he's told his story, you also believe him even more because he's got a huge story. And I got done the end of the day and I couldn't wait to leave the room. I met these really nice people at the table. Did you want to go out for dinner? And of course, I didn't have any money. And I was like, oh, I just really can't. But I couldn't wait. Oh, thanks for putting Bob up there. To leave the room. And I literally ran to my hotel room and I was bawling my eyes out. Like I had those ugly cry, big gulps, all that stuff. And I cried for hours. And I would say, I'm a sensitive person, but I'm not necessarily a crier all the time. So to have this happen was just overwhelming, all that stuff. And just stuff was pouring out of me. But it
Mhm.
wasn't sad. It was like a revelation. Like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to live like this. I can change my mind. And it was so impactful. Like, I can't believe how impactful it was. So we had a 4-day thing, and it was great. And I got to be certified. And that was really wonderful. I also saw another side of the Bob Proctor group. So we were being shown a bunch of things that we could offer to people, books you could have, games they do, blah, blah, all this in this Proctor Institute that they had, right? And I'm just shrugging my shoulders looking at this stuff, saying, well, I can't buy in this stuff anyway, so it doesn't matter. He gave us one of everything as a kit, which was a
Mhm.
surprise. So I got home and a couple weeks later, this kit arrives to me with 10 workbooks, with all the stuff they talked about, more to be able to sell if we wanted to, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it was awesome. During the day two, this is where I get to the story of the house, is we were sitting there and he said, okay, just lean back and sit back and, just get relaxed and you're good and let everything go. And let's have an idea of an image. Okay, so if money wasn't an issue and none of your life stuff mattered, like no house here, no house, what would your house look like? And we sat back and we told to close our eyes. He did a little bit of manifesting and walking through sort of a guided meditation, it was great. And I realized I'm driving. I'm driving on a country road and I pull into somewhere like a driveway, if you will, and I go down a hill and around a corner, and there's some water there, and then there's a house, and it's a yellow house, yellow siding, and I realize my eyes kind of go up like, what? I don't even like that idea, right? And then the most upsetting part was, and I was really deep in this, was there was Canadian trees. And I was like, now I'm kind of pissed. I want this pink sparkly castle in the tropics. I want to be warm all the time. And so my conscious mind is saying, no, 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 no. But my unconscious or subconscious was going there. And I just let it flow. So there was a wraparound porch. And as I said, there was some water there. And maybe we came out of this and he said, write down what you're thinking. Okay, so I called it the LYH, Little Yellow House. No, 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 no. And I wrote about it, and I was kind of goofing off. Like, it was like, yeah, well, whatever. I don't even want this anyway. It's kind of dumb, right? Fine. So time goes on. I've told friends about my LYH, the little yellow house, right? That's what I'm going to have. Little yellow house on the water. That's what I'm going to have, right? And I'm quite sure about it that something's happening, but I wasn't attached to that part of things. Except the more I talked about it, the more it's like, that'd be okay. I don't know. Let's see, right? So we have to fast forward 14 years. And I'm not kidding. And I've talked about this on and off and occasionally here and there. I told some stories about the weekend with Bob Proctor and all that kind of stuff that happened and manifesting one thing or another. But 14 years later, I'm going to become a certified dream builder coach in LA. And that's with somebody named Mary Morrissey, who also knows Unity quite well. In Edmonton Airport, I'm changing planes and there's a delay. I get a phone call from my friend Joanne. Joanne worked with her husband, Gary. They had also retired and came to Florida to live part-time. I had visited them about a month before, and she said, hey, you should buy a place here. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't know, right? Maybe. I wasn't retired. I wasn't even thinking about it, right? Joanne phones me and says, there's a place, Marilyn, there's a place. You've got to look at it right now. I'm sending you some pictures. I'll go look at it for you. Okay, whatever. And she does. So she apparently you're supposed to look at roofs and look at how, the structure of the home, because they're like manufactured homes, and there can be difficulties underneath and stuff. And she's very good like that. So she got to come and look at it. And I said, I don't know, like, I just can't buy this out of the blue. She said, the lady is going to give it back to the park. She's 92. She actually had cancer and her family was here to take her to Florida, to take her to Texas where they lived. They were going to give the home back to the park that we live in. They just didn't want to deal with it. And their mom was unwell. That's all they wanted to do was look after their mom. So by the time I got to LA to this conference, I had bought a house for $5,000 US. I started the negotiation at $5,000 thinking we'd go there, and I didn't really know what else to do. And they said, okay. So I had an email by the time I got to LA saying I have a house. It is a little yellow house with siding. It's 8 minutes from the ocean.
8 minutes from the ocean.
8 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean. So all of this is going to my head. The little yellow house. The little yellow house. I got the little yellow house. Right? Cool, right? So I'm all excited about this. I come home. I tell my parents and my family, my friends, I got a little yellow house. This is great. This is great. And it sounds like that should be the end of the story, right? But it's not. Yeah. Same people, same couple live in a place up north near Guelph that have cottages in them. Same idea, kind of trailer home kind of ideas, permanent ones that could be taken away. And the same woman calls me and says, hey, there's a place in the park down the road. You should buy it. And by then I was thinking of maybe retiring from my university job. I was thinking about that. It was going through my mind. I was making a plan, let's put it that way. And lo and behold, I went to visit them. And this is where it gets emotional for me, because I was driving down the road and I turned in the driveway and went down the hill and around the corner. And there was water. It was a little river, the Speed River. And the other little yellow house is a little yellow siding house with a wraparound porch with a deck on the river. And I just burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, like this is where I'm meant to be. This is the thing that I didn't even know that I wanted 14 years ago, when I was kind of ticked at this sort of revelation of what I was supposed to have. And I've told this as a talk before, and I always end and say, I own 2 tin cans. Like that's what I've got, right? But they're my tin cans, and I really like them. As a clown.
I
Oh my
love that.
gosh. I
I
get
All my friends say
goosebumps.
Paradise South and Paradise North. That's what we call the 2 parks. And they always talk about the LYH, because that was the little yellow house. And it
Yes.
just became something that was so silly and then so profound.
Mm.
I didn't
That's
dwell on it every day, but
Mhm.
I did write it down, and I did put it
Mhm.
up on a vision board. And if I found little pictures, I'd cut them out and put them up with the vision board. It was there. It was just
Yeah.
there. It
Yeah.
wasn't my forethought every day. But
Mhm.
I can say by that journey, and what happened that weekend was really a change in my life, a total change in my life. I was living a good life and living a happy life and great kids, great family, great friends. Everything was great. But
Mhm.
I shifted that weekend to giving up worrying about the things I was worrying about, because the bills I had last month came next month. They still got paid. They still managed. Things got better. You have a raise, something else occurs. That idea of prosperity is it's kind of a deep rooted thing, where when you get to that place where you're saying, I just know it's going to be,
Mm.
and
Mm.
whatever fine looks like, it's
Yeah.
not always perfect. It doesn't matter. It's
Right.
just fine. We're good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my little story about the
I love
LYHs.
that.
Yeah. I love that story. I love it because for me, it does speak to what we talk about, what we believe. And also because many people think, I'm going to do this for a couple of years, and after a couple of years nothing happens, and it's like, oh, I'm wasting my time, it doesn't work, right? And it's really not about that. It's about what the right time, the right place, all that coming into fruition, and us really not knowing or having to do with when that will be and what it will look like.
And some of that sense of allowing sometimes too. The majority of people that I spoke, not the majority, that's not fair. Some people I spoke to, I'll say some,
Mhm.
um, the reactions were, what? You bought a
Mhm.
house in Florida? What? Like, are you crazy?
Mhm.
Kind of silly. I was working full time. I wasn't going to do it. I gave it to my parents for 2 years. They came
Mhm.
to Florida for 2 years when I couldn't. I just came for a visit. It was great. So the
Mhm.
last couple years that my dad was alive, we had that wonderful thing happening, which was great.
Beautiful.
My mom
Yeah.
loves Florida, so she comes down with me now. She's in the other room right now, actually, and we share the house for the wintertime, and it's been great. The other thing that was always a reaction was, I could never do what you do.
Mhm.
But I'm not any different.
Mhm.
I took a bit of a deep breath. I might have stepped to the edge of that cliff. And Bob's always says, if you're not standing on the edge of the cliff, you're taking up too much room.
You
Wow.
know,
Wow.
that's a very
Somebody's got to
great
step off and
statement.
just say, this is
Yeah.
the opportunity. The worst
Yeah.
thing would have happened to me is I would have lost $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not
But
the end of
even
the
the
world.
leap of faith to pay $10,000 and that's years ago. That's not like last year or the year before. To take a loan and pay $10,000 to do that takes a lot of courage. Talk about being on the edge of the cliff,
But
right?
I was driven. I don't like, I still, that drive that comes up about something, and you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in it to win it. And for some reason, if the doors just open, it,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to do that. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
that was, and it
Yeah.
has served me so well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just in life process alone, that
Yeah.
weekend has served me so well.
Yeah.
Right.
And I often hear people talk about money. There's another book called "Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting," and I just forgot what the lady's name was, but she was awesome. I saw her in person once, and
Mm-hmm.
she talks about the fact that money's the most uncomfortable word in every language. When people
Mm-hmm.
start talking about it, they hesitate, they cough, they get worried, because they don't want to talk about it, which I always think is kind of silly, because it makes all of our economies work. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the word prosperity is not always about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's
No, definitely
you're
not.
health, or it's about your relationships. It's about
Mhm.
your spiritual life. It's, oh, look, Lynn
Absolutely.
Grabhorn, that's her name. That's right. Great book, by the way. A little older now, but she's funny. She's got a funny writing. And
Nice.
it's one of those. Well, thanks, Deja. It's one of those things where immediately people think prosperity has to be, oh, you're greedy for money.
Yeah.
No, I'm greedy for good life.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me just a couple weeks ago, "Oh, I wouldn't want to win one of those big lotteries."
Mhm.
Okay, well, A, then you won't. So that's cool because you don't want to. That's cool. but B, so I said, why? Oh,
Mm.
that much money, too much
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes, but think of what you could do. And that's not about a house and a cruise and, I don't know, buying an island or something. That's like you could deal with a whole bunch of people that needed stuff. You could start a literacy
Absolutely.
program, or start a funding of something that you loved, or put people through school, or like whatever you want to do, whatever
Yeah.
would float your
Yeah.
boat.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me
But
would
the
be
good you can do for others with it.
absolutely.
It's not always me, right? Myself and I.
Absolutely. And we know people that have a lot of money that don't have those other balances of prosperity,
Yeah.
whether it's health or relationships, friends,
Yeah.
family, care, whatever it is, right? There's so many things that people consider that's the only part of it. It's got to be in circulation, first
Yeah.
of all, and which means, we got to have an open hand because it gives and receives, but also
Mhm.
the fact that it needs to be in a place where, the other things have to balance. If
Mhm.
they don't, all the money in the world's not going to make a difference.
Absolutely. And to that point, I just watched a documentary on Netflix, I think it was, about, and I can't remember her name, the richest, the actual documentary was called something like The Billionaire, the Butler, and the Boyfriend, or something like that. And it was about the richest woman in the world. Her father started L'Oreal.
Okay.
Okay. And, talking about her life and how this one guy, she gave $1 billion to, and, people were just around her, sponging from her all the time. And she lived into her 90s. There she is. Yeah. And what's her name? Does it say? Anyway, I don't see it. But so this is a new one. That's her daughter on the with the glasses, and the guy on the other shoulder is the guy who befriended her, who she had a lot of fun with and really liked and enjoyed. But the reality is, he took her for $1 billion. She started giving generously, and then after that, he started wanting more and more. The point is, obviously, she did not have a happy life, right? The richest woman in the world, and most of her life was unhappy. And that speaks to that point, right? We need a balanced life. We need to have abundance in our areas of health, in our areas of happiness and joy, in the area of giving as well as receiving, right? All those things to enable us to be healthy, balanced human beings and enjoy what we receive.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
Yeah,
think
and
too,
celebrate
for
it. And
me, prosperity is being able to do what you want, when you want, in the manner you want, in a healthy body.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right? Like that to
Beautifully
me is
said.
prosperity. It's got nothing to do with money.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Because if
Because
you
you
can
might
do
want to try
that,
some ice cream, and that might make you really happy that day. And it's going to
yeah,
cost you your $2.50 or $3. It's not about the money part. It's giving you that joy that day, that time, right then, with the people you want to be with.
that's
Fantastic.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we're going to take a quick little commercial break here because we're at the halfway point. You're watching Spirit Cafe Show here on the New Thought Media Network. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought, Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Welcome back. I just wanted to acknowledge that the person's name that I was talking about, the billionaire, is Lillian Bettencourt. And her father founded L'Oreal, and she inherited all of that. And then, and her daughter actually took her friend to court. It was really ugly. And in fact, her mom and herself didn't talk for a while, for quite a long time, but they made up in the end before she passed.
It's funny how money can split people up. Like you hear about, someone dies and the estate, everybody's fighting over the estate. It's like, what is wrong with us that
Yeah.
money becomes the breaking point, so that instead of loving each other, caring for each other, hanging with each other, acknowledging each other, we're going, hey, you owe me $5.
Yeah.
Like what is
Yeah.
that?
I know what you would say it is.
Hmm?
Fear.
Fair. Yeah, somebody's going to have something I don't. Like,
Yeah.
I think when a friend of mine used to say, what's meant for you can't go past you. And I
love that.
love
True.
that idea that whatever's mine, I mean, it's going to find its way to me, or I'll find my way to it, whatever. But I think that idea of being fearful of what other people have, or trying to get what other people have got, or feeling bad about ourselves because we don't have what somebody else has, that's all like just crazy
Fear of
making stuff.
not having enough. I think that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all around fear. And so that's where the greed is coming from. And that's
Mhm.
causing a lot of destroyed relationships that don't need to be destroyed.
I know. It's very sad. Very,
It
very
really
sad.
is.
Yeah.
I look around the city, we're having courageous conversations. So let's talk about housing because, that's fun. We have a lot of people who do not have housing. and people who have full-time jobs who do not have housing because they can't afford it, even with a full-time job. And, I look at that and where I live, I drive past a certain plaza where the whole thing is boarded up and has been since shortly after COVID. The business has failed.
Mm-hmm.
These places are boarded up.
Mm-hmm.
People could be living there. Like
Mm-hmm.
the city could make a deal with the owners to say, instead of having it boarded up, let's give you some concessions, you give us some concessions. We'll open this up and make for housing for people.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
Why would we leave those
solution's
empty
always the
spaces
right
just
one.
empty? It's
Yeah.
so silly when people are looking for space.
Yeah.
All somebody wants, right, is space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
when we look at what's happening in our world today, the answer to many of the challenges we face is not particularly complicated. It's just unpopular.
Exactly.
It's, can we support each other, or do I have to hold everything just for me because I'm more special? I think there's just some confusion about what prosperity looks like and what we can do with it and how we can create a world that actually works well for everyone
Right.
Mm-hmm.
rather than just for me. And I think that's the question that we're, looking at when it comes to
Yeah.
housing. Why do we have all these homeless people?
Well, and that's it. There's so many questions. Why do we have the homeless people? Why do we have all the space that's not being used and could be used? And to me, it all comes back to politics, power and control, capitalism. I'm sorry to say, but that's
Colonial
why the place
system.
is empty, because we can't let somebody stay there for nothing. Then what will happen? And we can't kick them out, and then we can't do this, and we can't. So we better just keep it empty until we can get somebody who can pay for it and move in and be a decent tenant, right?
Selfish, 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 selfish.
And in the meantime, you have all the people that are either on the street or living in less than better situations, or having to have 27 people in one house, or whatever it is that people are managing to
Yeah.
live by, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
And the worst part is the person who owns all these properties, who is letting them sit there empty, is the same person criticizing Tent Town.
Exactly.
It's
How
Yeah.
dare those people pitch tents? What are they thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. What are they thinking?
I
They
walk a
need
mile. Yeah,
something.
Yeah.
They need a place. They need space. They need respect. They deserve it. They're a
Yeah.
child of the universe. I
Yeah.
think, when I look at all the things going on in the world and the way in which we deal with so much of it, it really does come down to the almighty dollar. Somehow money tends to matter more than relationships. And I look at that and it makes me cringe a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
going, what if we stopped that? What if we put humanity first
Mm-hmm.
and then followed it up with whatever else? I
Well, like you said, there's got to be drastic change in order for that to happen. Dramatic change,
Yeah,
right? Um,
that's
and
it.
who knows? When we look at the state of the world right now, we know that. Well, I believe that metaphysically, we certainly are going through a change, and I know that a lot of people do believe that. And when you look at the state of the world, I think that's also part of it,
Of
right?
course
This
it is.
big
Yeah.
change. So, who knows? Maybe somewhere along the line, something will, what's the word? Reverse itself, like from one end to the other, kind of turn around, right?
well,
Um,
and change so often creates chaos, right?
exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Globally or
Yes.
personally, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it has to, because the only way to change anything is really to rebuild, right? So things have
Exactly.
to actually collapse and have to fall apart so that there can be an opportunity, a place to be able to rebuild in a different way.
Rethink it and rebuild
Rethink
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The challenge is, the people that will want to rebuild as it was before.
Well, therein is the difficulty, right? Like I
And that's
want
the problem right now.
Yeah, it's like everything that's happened, well, it hasn't really worked well. But for whatever reason, when it falls apart, you're exactly right. We want to redo it the
Mhm,
same way. And we
mhm.
find that even in our teaching, it like, let's go back to the old ways. Well, let's not and say we did. Let
Let's
us
see what days were
honor
they
and
again?
respect it. Yeah, let's allow it to move us forward. Let's use that as a foundation that I can stand on that's rock solid
Yes.
and create something brand new.
And embrace what's been
Embrace.
created
Yeah,
between then and now that
yeah.
is good,
Yeah.
There's
right?
lots of good. Yeah.
Whereas, sometimes I feel like people get very stuck in, that's who I follow, that's who I like, that's where, so I'm not going to look at this, I'm not going to include this, I'm not going to acknowledge this because I've got that. Well, you know what? Some of this is just like expands that exponentially,
Yeah.
right?
The fear of change is fascinating.
It
Mhm.
is.
It's that fear of the unknown, right? It's like I know what I have, and even if I'm deathly uncomfortable where I am, I'm
Mhm.
familiar with it, so I stay.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah,
watch
and we
that
have
over and
facts about
over.
that, right? People that will go back to uncomfortable or even violent situations.
Yeah.
Been
Know
there.
that one, they don't know the other parts. That's too scary and new, right? And
Yeah.
did you ever
Yeah.
read the book The Courage to Be Rich by Susie Orman? And
No.
No, I haven't read that one.
she's
No.
talking about rich, but in many different ways. And
Yeah.
just walking back a little bit at the first part of the conversation, money and death and stuff. And she said that money and death are the things that create the most problems in most families and friendship situations, first of all.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
talks about the fact that those are two things we also don't talk about.
Yeah.
We
You
don't
know,
talk about money and we don't talk about death, and they're both inevitable.
yeah,
Yeah.
they are the two things. We're gonna be born, we're gonna die. That's about all we know about our whole life.
Those are
Yeah.
the guarantees.
The
Yeah.
story in the middle is whatever we make it, right? And actually it's a fascinating and well written older book now, but I think it would still be very current as
Relative.
Rich
Yeah.
ideas.
to rich.
And it's that she talks about when people talk about those good old days and remember when we used to. Yeah, the good old days were good for some people. I bet you there's others in that exact same life that were not having the good old days.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I don't know
Absolutely.
how you feel, but the people I see as happiness as they age are often people that embrace what's happening. They're interested in what's going on, they pay attention, but they don't say, "Oh, the kids today," or "Oh, that music," or "They shouldn't," or "We shouldn't," or "I'm too old for that." They embrace things, and I see people because we're living a lot longer these
Mhm.
We are.
a lot of people expect to be 100 now. It's not weird. Um,
Mhm.
they're sort of embracing things. And because I'm actually in a couple of 55 plus communities, just by the way these little houses were worked out, um,
Mhm.
I see the whole gamut of that. And I've
Right.
watched people same age as me looking, I'm thinking, oh, you look terribly older than me. I don't ever want to say that, and
Mm.
kind of miserable and mad and not
Mhm.
happy about life. And it used to be better. And did it though? Like, did it
It
really?
really didn't.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, even people will say, COVID, worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. What about the depression?
Mm, yeah.
What
Yeah.
what
Hey,
what about what about the slaughtering of indigenous people or the Holocaust or the killing? I'm sorry, this is not the worst. This is just that journey of creating that shift that causes us to rethink
Right.
everything. And I think that's what's going on. It's like when Trump took power in the US and everything changed in the US. Was that a bad thing? Well, what it did was brought the stuff to the surface
it
so we
did.
Mhm.
can see it. Is that bad? No, I think seeing it was good. Awareness is power. We can
Mhm.
now change something if we can see it. And I think the same thing here when we look at what's going on around the world and the poverty and the homelessness and the hunger and just the fear that seems to be pulling us all apart is like all of it is fabrications of our
It
imagination.
is. And where do we get it from? The media.
Media, parents,
Yeah,
teachers,
yeah, yeah.
friends, neighbors, all kinds of helpful
Yeah.
people. But the media is really a machine
Yes.
that
And
keeps,
Greg Braden talks about it in this piece that I watched this morning.
yeah,
And, how there are only 6 corporations that own all the media channels and companies and things like that. And how each one has their own focus, their own stance, right?
mhm,
And the people that believe this are hearing this over and over again. The people that are here hearing this aren't
exactly.
hearing this,
No,
right? So they are talking about the same thing, the same people with different information, and they think
absolutely.
they know what they're talking about. And this is really the world that we're living in. And so to become aware of things like that, so we're not so quick to be so divisive and to be so self-righteous and all those kinds of things, because
Yeah,
we are being fed in a way that honestly is like taking a person physically from here to here,
absolutely.
right?
Why I don't watch the news. I can't because I know it's not factual. It
I
is.
try and what I try and do is I don't watch one thing. I look
Mhm.
at things from different places, from different standpoints. My whole intention is not to take sides, not to
That's the
be
most
divisive,
important. Yeah.
because we don't have all the facts. And even hearing different opinions in different areas, we can even step further back from the things I listen to, and it's even bigger than that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because then you start saying, oh, okay, well, this isn't even about the Middle East. This is about China and Iran and Russia and the States. And I'm just giving you an example. I'm not saying that it
And
is.
if we go right to the core, it's all about consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is at the core. And where we are in humanity, it's about power and greed.
Consciousness again, the
Exactly.
consciousness of fear.
Yeah,
Because if
that's
I have to
exactly.
exert power over you, that comes from my fear.
Yeah,
And if I am living in greed, that comes from my fear. I'm
yeah,
afraid somebody's going to take
yeah,
something from me or get a little more than me or
yeah,
whatever the case may
Right.
be.
Right.
And fear is, I mean, even watch the commercials on TV, the brick. Here I am advertising the brick. Um, every single weekend, the last 2 days for this big sale, it's never going to happen again. Well, at least for 2 more days, and then we'll start it again. It's like, all of these things, buy today, don't pay for 3 years. 3 years goes by real quick.
Yeah.
Has our
mhm,
financial position changed in those 3 years? Often not. And now all of a sudden there's this big bill. And why did we buy this stuff? Well, we had to have it. There's all of these ways that we're getting messaging that is keeping us pushed down and
yeah.
held in fear
And
because we
yeah.
don't have enough money to cover all the stuff we think we need.
Right. So for
Thinking what you need
me,
is true, right? To think we need to because it's an emergency. It's an
yeah,
emergency
Yeah,
every time you
yeah.
see the ad or you'll get that
Got to have
call
that.
or
Got to
something
have
on
it
Facebook.
now.
gotta
Oh,
have it.
now, right?
Yeah,
It's like, yeah,
yeah,
Can't live without it.
step back.
yeah.
It's like sending that email that's not very nice or something. Just step away leave it overnight, leave it on your screen,
There
cool.
you go.
Don't press send yet because you might change your mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Reread it in a day or two and
Exactly.
then send it if you still feel like it's
If that's
accurate.
where your heart really is, cool. But yeah, and so many times you get that buyer's regret too, that the
mhm,
Oh,
people
yeah.
have, and they'll say, "Oh, I just," and I think that's stepping away and having that sense of being in touch with what really matters.
yes,
Some
Yeah.
practicality of things, of course, but also, how would it be fulfilling in your life? Do you need that new couch? Is that the
mhm,
only thing you need in your new life?
mhm.
Probably the next weekend there'll be another sale that you'd like just as much.
Exactly,
Something else you need,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's never about the material thing, right?
No.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
older I get, the more I realize that, and the less I need.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
I want to give stuff away now. It's a dust collector. I don't want to have to dust it anymore. Give it away.
exactly right. Exactly right. That is
And
so
gifting
true.
can be such a profoundly fun
Mhm,
experience,
mhm.
rather than having, let's say, the yard sale or putting it on Facebook Market or
Yeah,
whatever, whatever. That's all cool, and I don't want to ever put that down. But when we've already used something and
yeah,
it's been to our pleasure and
yeah.
it's done,
Mhm.
give it away.
Yeah,
Yep.
Make the
I
space.
I
Let it be
moved
somebody
this
else's
summer.
joy.
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the
Marilyn, I
whole thing,
moved
right?
this summer and I gave away truckloads of stuff to people who were new immigrants to our country.
That's exactly
And
what I did when I downsized from a larger house
yeah.
to little places. It was fun.
Oh,
Mm,
it felt so good. Yeah,
great. Mm.
Yeah,
And I bet it still feels good, right?
yes, it
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 does.
does.
still feels good.
Yeah.
And so these are the kinds of things I think that we need to leave people with, and also sort of recognizing and just becoming a little bit more aware of why we do things, why we say things, um, the fear that comes up in us. Like for me, I say I am very blessed. I'm really grateful for everything in my life. And I know that I also block myself with
Hmm.
some of the thoughts behind the thoughts. I feel like it's having to gouge out that muck and get rid of it, right? And we
Yeah,
all have that
we
because,
do.
if we didn't, we would probably be, I don't know, we would be a happier people. That's
Yes,
for
we
sure,
would.
Well, and it's
right?
those rote things that we do sometimes. There's rote things
Yeah,
we learn from childhood or religion or from teachers or upbringing or whatever it is. And you'll hear people will say a saying, and they really won't know what they've said. If you
exactly.
said to them, "What does that exactly mean?" It's like,
Hmm.
Yeah,
"Oh, my mother always said that." It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, and
exactly right.
usually to get something out of the way. Like, I don't want
Hmm.
to talk about that, or we can't give you that, or whatever. It's a saying to get things. I've told stories before about people becoming successful and coming from unsuccessful families, and
Yeah,
oftentimes they can't go home.
yeah,
It's
Yeah,
difficult because they're holding up a mirror and it's too uncomfortable. And it's so sad because everybody you think wants the next generation to be better, but sometimes we run into things where it's actually a put down and it's really difficult. We say, yeah, rah, 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 go.
yeah.
But after the fact, many people have some good sayings to say, oh yeah, but you're not all that in mega chips.
Yeah.
well, and it's interesting. On Sunday, the talk that I gave was around the should, and every time we say, well, I should do this or I should do that, who created that energy? Like, whose should are you living?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I'll catch myself saying, well, I should do that. Well, why, if I ask myself, why should I do that? Because that a good girl would,
Hmm. Yeah. A decent person.
a decent person
Hmm.
would.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like, uh, okay, who decided?
We decided.
So what does that say about me?
What if instead we listened to our heart and said, what do I love? What excites and delights me? What is it that I want to do in the world or be in the world?
Hmm.
That's where we find our freedom and our joy and excitement.
And that's
It's
how we create change when we
That's how we
focus on
create change.
that for
Yes.
ourselves, right? Who do I
Yes.
want to be? How do I want to be? Um, and we've
Mhm.
spoken about this before, and it's the same thing that Gandhi said: "Be the change you want to see." Right, and so it
Absolutely.
goes it goes for the same thing. It goes for peace, it goes for prosperity, give to others and give freely and joyfully,
Give
because that's the
freely.
key,
Yeah.
right? It's not what we do, it's how, it's the intention, it's the feeling that we put behind it, to
Yes.
create a better reality for ourselves, because we all live in our own little worlds.
and listening to the little voice sometimes. Sometimes a little voice is a whisper, just a tiny whisper. And you think, oh no, I can't do that. But you can, right? I recall, I won't tell this a long story, but I ended my university career. I loved my university career. I love my students, I love teaching, I love all of it. But administration was just far too negative. And one of the things about my core values that I wrote down at some time during a class was I have a core value of joy, and I wasn't getting joy. Driving down the road, going home, crying, literally crying, saying, "What am I going to do?" Word walks to quit. I'm like, I can't quit. I'm having a conversation with myself. Of course I can. It means I have to give up my salary and wanted to. So I organized a plan, HR department, to have a 2-year situation where I moved into a semi-retirement. Didn't keep working at the school, just did some other things with consulting that I got to set up. That wasn't because I'm clever. It's because I was miserable, and I had to address that. And by addressing my feeling of not joy, told me to quit, and it was the best thing I did. And I can still walk back in there and say hi to people, and I go back and teach foreign students sometimes, and it's fun.
Beautiful.
It was the right thing at the right time, but I listened to that thing that said quit, that I really thought, how I don't know how I'm going to do that.
Well, you listened to it and you created
I looked into it rather than putting it away. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I looked
And
into
the
it.
truth
It's not a bad
is,
reality. It just might not be an option. I don't know.
Yeah.
I looked into it to see.
Yeah.
and how is not our job.
Yeah.
How will be revealed when we listen, right? Like that's the universe's job to figure out the how. We don't have to figure that out. Now we're down to our last 4 minutes. Time flies sometimes. And the way we like to end the show is, what is the one thing you would like people to take away from this conversation? Marilyn, what one thing?
I guess I would say face the fear and do it anyway.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wow.
I love it. Cheryl, what about you? What is one thing you want everybody to take away today?
I think just to be aware of your thoughts, our thoughts and our words, the things that we're saying and doing, and just being aware of the impact that it has in our communities, in our families, in our small groups. Just to have that little bit of awareness.
Beautiful.
Powerful, powerful. And for me, I think it's, what you think about, you bring about. And when we're focusing on fear and poverty and upset, that's the energy that surrounds us. It is very attractive. It draws into our experience a matching energy, which means the crap that I'm living right now, I get to bring into my future. Yay. Or I can change my mind and go, wait a minute, I'm going to love what is.
Yes.
I'm going to be with what is, and I'm going to move forward with laughter and joy and peace and excitement. And
beautiful. Love that.
I knew I'd raised my daughter in a good way when she said to me one day when she's a teenager, oh, wait, I need to get in a better mood.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Marilyn, you have been such a joy, such a wonderful guest, such a great example of what we are talking about here, right here and right now. And just
You're
so
a treasure.
Yeah.
As are you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And maybe another time next year.
Let's have another conversation. I
Would
always
be
love
great.
that.
Yeah.
Words are good.
Also, always. And always lovely to hear different people's thoughts and different people's perception, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about how we perceive things.
It's true. Well, have a wonderful, wonderful week, everyone. We're going to be back again next week. And our guest is Suzanne Paddock. And we're going to be talking about anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and colonialism. Oh, it's going to be a conversation. Anyway, thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Deja, for being in the background, doing the great work that you do. And of course, my beloved sister in in life here, the incredible Cheryl. I'm so glad you're feeling better and you're back. We
Thank
love
you,
you, love
Barbara.
you, love you.
Love you too,
And
my princess.
have a wonderful week, everybody. And be sure to like, share, subscribe, and even donate to the New Thought Media Network. It's a great place. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
See you
Bye
next
for now.
week.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.